hegemonic masculinity and its congruently constructed femininity, and how those two things shape the passing narrative for trans individuals. Hegemonic masculinity is a societal construction as to how masculinity should be performed in a certain society. This performance often has links to power and dominance. Now, common characteristics you'll see in American hegemonic masculinity is the white wealthy male. This white wealthy man is usually an adult who has a full-time job, a family, the works. He's living the American dream. Here are some examples of hegemonic masculinity.
John. What's that? Kill a bad guy. That's your thing. Not gonna die today.
As you can see from those examples, hegemonic masculinity relies heavily upon appearance and violence. As for appearance, the masculine man that plays to the wealthy part of hegemonic masculinity is often clean-shaven and dressed nicely. His goal is to make you understand right off the bat that he is wealthy and powerful. For men who play towards the rough and violent part of hegemonic masculinity, they're often allowed a little bit more leeway on their appearance. They're allowed to be rugged and have beards, but most importantly, they're muscular and strong. In both cases of appearance, the message is their strength. Men who are clean-shaven show strength through their wealthy power, and men who are tough and rugged show strength through their physical power. Either way, hegemonic masculinity and appearances rely heavily on the immediate coding of power. This power is what men use to assert their dominance over the oppressed groups. Furthermore, as seen in the Die Hard clip, men are not allowed to show their emotions. Masculinity demands that men are not allowed to share their emotions. The lack of sharing usually translates into a man's power to control his emotions, when really, all that does is affirm that emotions are for women and femininity. This lack of emotional recognition is harmful to all gender performances. When talking about femininity, we are mostly talking about beauty standards. Beauty standards in the United States currently revolved around the tall, white, blonde woman. This tall, white, blonde woman also has docile features and dressed in a hyper-feminine way. Here are some examples.
There were no words left. We'd said them all. After we made love, I knew it was over. Did I ever really love big, or was I addicted to the pain?
As you can see, these women tend to dress provocatively and wear lots of makeup. This is a marker of American femininity. American femininity is constructed in response to the hegemonic masculinity of dominance and power. American women are constructed to be submissive to men. They're often turned into sex objects, and to be a sex object, you have to have femininity. Just like how power and dominance are characteristics of hegemonic masculinity, being docile and submissive are characteristics of femininity. Unlike hegemonic masculinity, there is a uniform appearance for femininity. Femininity is often intrinsically linked to consumption. This consumption is of makeup and clothing. To be feminine, you must wear makeup, you must be fashionable, and you must be submissive. Next, let's talk about trans identities. In the Sex and the City clip, it's obvious that even little things like her body positioning are to show her femininity. The body positioning also shows how she is going to be used as a sex object. The end of the scene is supposed to be an emotional moment for Carrie. She is sitting alone, half naked, thinking to herself about the emotional connection she has with the man she just had sex with. In context with the rest of the show, this is to show her obsession with love and relationships. More specifically, her relationships with men. In the show, this is supposed to be a marker of her femininity, along with her obsession with fashion. At the very least, this clip shows how femininity is linked to body type, sexuality, and reliance on heterosexual relationships. People who are trans are often individuals who do not feel comfortable with their assigned at birth gender or sex. These individuals often change their gender performance and or their bodies to better represent themselves. As for the trans passing narrative, here's a quick definition for it. The narrative basically suggests that to be trans, you need to have completed your transition. This means you need to reconform to the gender binary. This is where hegemonic masculinity and femininity shape the idea of what trans lives and embodiment can be. Hegemonic masculinity and femininity define the passing narrative. In the chapter, The Socially Constructed Body, Lorber and Martin state this. Members of a society construct their bodies in ways that comply with accepted views of masculinity and femininity. The trans-passing narrative is based on this thought. Members of a society have to conform to either masculinity or femininity. These two models of masculinity and femininity define how to conform to those ideals. Therefore, trans individuals who do not conform to hegemonic masculinity or socially constructed femininity cannot be seen as fully trans. This is problematic given the spectrum of trans bodies. Trans individuals that are looking to fully transition then look to these models of masculinity and femininity to construct their future identities. People whose bodies comply with valued conventions are admired, praised, and held up to others as ideals to be emulated. In short, by judging, rewarding, and punishing people of different bodies, members of a social group persuade and coerce each other to construct socially acceptable and similar-looking bodies. I started this section with a quote from Lorber and Martin to remind ourselves that passing privilege is socially beneficial. That means conforming to the gender binary is socially encouraged. Trans individuals are often coerced and persuaded to conform to the binary genders. When trans individuals do so, they are applauded for their ability to pass. In doing so, like the quote says, this gives trans individuals more value and gives them passing privilege. Examples of famous trans individuals that you may know that have passing privilege are Laverne Cox and Caitlyn Jenner. Both of these women are able to pass due to their access to medical treatment and their personal desires to conform to constructed femininity. Passing privilege allows for certain trans individuals to go through their daily lives with the possibility without being outed, harassed, or discriminated against. While all the benefits of passing privilege are wanted, it erases the bodies and experience of those trans individuals who do not conform to the gender binary. Although you may think that the natural physiology and anatomy of female and male bodies dictates the ways women's and men's bodies look and are used, social constructionist feminist theory argues that ideal types of bodies that all are encouraged to emulate are the product of society, gender ideology, practices, and stratification system. The embodiment of gender performance does not rely on the sex of the individual, and it definitely does not rely on their assigned at birth gender or sex. Society encourages all bodies to emulate the ideal types of gender, hegemonic masculinity, and constructed femininity. The acceptance of this social encouragement is harmful to cisgendered people, those who continually identify with their assigned at birth gender and sex, and transgender people. Specifically in regards to transgender people, the pressure to emulate ideal embodiments leads to passing and passing privilege. As we've learned, passing privilege only allows for a small percentage of trans individuals to be accepted. For more inclusive trans acceptance, the idea that passing privilege is the end goal needs to be eradicated. To do so, we as a society need to continually question the ideals of hegemonic masculinity and constructed femininity. What will you do to break down the barriers of gender performance?
Living in a moment, well, the moment's come and taken me by storm. Other people's feelings are are contagious and I seem to catch them all. So I want